Hello, I'm Mariana, and I will be doing my film analysis on Ex Machina, and I'll be talking about the gender politics within the film. Ex Machina is directed by Alex Garland. This is his directorial debut. He wrote other sci-fi movies such as 28 Days Later, Never Let Me Go, and Dread, and it is starring Domhnall Gleeson, Alicia Vikander, and Oscar Isaac. A quick synopsis is that Caleb is a 20-something-year-old coder who wins a competition within his company that is Blue Book, which is a leading internet search engine, sort of like Google. And the prize entails spending a week in a private research facility surrounded by mountains with the CEO, Nathan. And so Caleb comes to find later throughout the movie that he's actually there to participate in a Turing test. And a Turing test is when an AI's ability, an artificial intelligent robot, when their ability to exhibit intelligent behavior such as that of a human's is put to the test. And I will be talking about the climax and the ending because I think it pertains to my argument. So most of the movie consists of Caleb, participating in the Turing test, and then later discussing about his findings with Nathan, the CEO, the creator of the AI, Ava. And then it actually climaxes when we see that Ava is longing for freedom. She's put in a glass room, with no explanation. She's been there all of her existence, and she doesn't really communicate with anyone except for now Caleb. And so we start seeing that, she does have a consciousness, and what she wants is freedom. And then we actually find out that Nathan, the CEO, is abusive. He really is just creating all of these AIs for his personal usage as sex slaves. He has this one personal sex slave, I guess we could call it his favorite, because she's the only other character, the only other robot that we see most of, and her name is Kyoko. She's an Asian woman, and she's voiceless. At first throughout the movie, we think that it's because she doesn't speak English, perhaps, but later we come to find out that she's actually programmed by Nathan not to talk. So she's just a slave without an opinion. So Nathan's an asshole, basically, a misogynist one. And then so in the end, we realize that Caleb was just being... So Ava, the main robot, develops a crush, or so it seems, on Caleb, and Caleb as well. And so she, kind of flirts with him in order to get out, because she knows that Caleb is his only escape, because Nathan's never going to let her escape. So Caleb falls for it. He falls in love, or whatever you want to call it. He develops a crush. He really wants to help Ava. He feels bad for her. So they go throughout their mission to escape. They succeed. However, in the end, it turns out Ava kills Nathan, the creator, and then locks Caleb in a closet. And Ava's able to escape, but the males are not. The humans aren't. This movie is extremely controversial in terms of gender, and I think it caused two big splits in the feminist the feminist community, and I want to talk about a little bit about both of them, and then my opinion on how I see the film in these terms. First of all, I want to talk about one side of the feminist community is a lot of feminists argued that this movie is an allegory about patriarchy itself. Catherine Cross specifically said that when she wrote an article for Feministing. She raves about this movie, and she explains that, Nathan's an asshole, obviously, and that's obvious to any viewer. I think male, female, he's meant to be. You're not meant to like Nathan's character. However, she says that Caleb is also an asshole. Caleb's a jerk because although he seems to be the nice guy, he's some people view him as, poor Caleb. He was just used as an instrument to escape, for Ava's escape, and but really, Caleb was only trying to play hero. Basically, Caleb and Nathan both represent different types of misogynist men, and they're both on the opposite side of the spectrum. Nathan's the obvious abusive one, alcoholic, violent, whatever, anything bad you want to say. And then Caleb is the guy who thinks he's being nice, but really it's just all about his own interest. He doesn't really care about Ava as a person. He just wants to play hero. He wants to maybe, in the end, get to be with a girl. Catherine Cross calls it a nerd fantasy of the compliant robot girlfriend. So he just wants to live a fantasy, and he's kind of being selfish about it. And so she argues that this film really shows, it's a metaphor for centuries of sexism. Caleb feels entitled to be this hero. He feels entitled to her, and that is wrong as well. And so, because in the end, Ava doesn't end up falling in love for either of them. Ava just fakes the whole thing just to get an escape. She argues that, this is what it's like to be a female in society. She's trapped with two males that are both a different representation of misogyny, but still misogynistic, and one is just less obvious than the other. And she says, some viewers, probably males, would view Ava as, evil. Why did she have to use them? Why did she have to be such a monster? Why did she have to be such a jerk? Why did she have to do that to Caleb? She didn't have to be so, didn't have to go out like that. And she actually uses this quote by Angela Carter, which says, "A free woman in an unfree society will be a monster." She has to do what she has to do to get out. And this speaks loudly for feminists. And so that's one side of the argument, that Nathan, he sought to build the perfect woman, and instead he found himself thwarted by his own goal to make them human. Meaning, you can't make a human, but then have her be human and docile. You can't have a human and have a human, content with being, lived the way she was lived, abused and only used as like a sex object. And so it's all, this whole side is just arguing that Ex Machina is one big metaphor for what it's like to be a female. But in the end, she makes it out. So, and then another argument, the counter argument to Ex Machina and its gender politics, is that it's wrong and that it's extremely sexist because, like any other robot movie that the robot is a female. Natalie Wilson wrote an article for Miss Magazine. The main argument was, why does Ava have to prove her intelligence through flirting or through sexuality? That a bunch of female robots get stuck with this problem. This isn't the first time we see this in any robot movie. Female robots are always sexualized. If we wanted a more sophisticated robot, then it would have to be male. And if it's a female robot, then why does she have to constantly prove herself through flirting and through sexuality? And that's the big idea for that side of the story. My stance, I'm going to, after thinking about this for days and days and days, I'm going to label this movie as an unintentional feminist film. Here's why. I think in the first argument, the whole side about how it's an allegory about patriarchy, how it's a metaphor. I think that's originally how I viewed the film, definitely. But then what made this a little controversial is that in an interview with Alex Garland, he actually denies the whole gender aspect. He says gender's not important. It didn't matter to the film, which is totally controversial because it completely mattered to the film. I think this is what this film is about. And because Garland said that, it kind of debunks the whole theory that this is a metaphor about feminism, which is sad. So I think because of that, because of what Alex Garland said, I think it is therefore a non-intentional. It's non-intentional. It wasn't meant to be a feminist film. And then to argue against the whole why does Ava have to flirt to prove her consciousness, I think first of all, back to Alex Garland denying the gender, I think that all humans tend to gender things. I think that's just a human thing. I think there's no way out of it. It's like, in Star Wars, why is C-3PO viewed as a male? Perhaps it's the voice, but then even worse, why is R2-D2 viewed as a male? All he does is, beep, and he doesn't have any characteristics that pertain to a certain gender. But, you still see, most people, I think, still see him as a male. So, I think humans are going to gender things no matter what, so I don't think that's Alex Garland's fault. I don't think that's any sci-fi movie's fault. Yeah, and so also I think that because Ava has to flirt, I think she's just doing what she has to do in order to get out. I think because she's intelligent and she knows how males work. I don't think it's because it's the only thing she can do. I think if anything, that is just a negative reflection on males. More than women, actually. It's not, I don't think it's demeaning in any way that she has to flirt. I think it just means that she knows that that's the only way she can get out because that's the only thing that men can register. And that, in the end, just makes men look dumb, in my opinion. And I think that's why the ending of the film matters. I think if it had ended differently, if she hadn't gone away with it, if the male still won, then it would have been a totally different film. I would have been arguing something else. But I think because she got to go away with it, it proves that she was intelligent. It proves that she did know what she had to do to get out, and she did it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, yes, there's something wrong with that in the real world, but the film is just reflecting the real world, and I think that's important. I think that's better than a male trying to make a feminist movie, because as much as I love a male feminist, you can support the cause, but you can't pretend that you've been through something that you haven't. A male's never going to fully understand because he's never been a female, in most cases. It's kind of like a Caucasian writing about what it's like to be black. You just can't. So I think it's better that this is unintentional. I think it's better that Alex Garland didn't purposefully make a feminist film. I think actually he's making a film about masculinity. I think this is very important. I think this film actually has nothing to do with femininity. I think it's definitely about masculinity. And I think in the end, it just makes males look bad. In a good way. It's because it's reflecting the real life. It's reflecting what males really think. It's reflecting, and in the end, it's negative. It's a negative view about males. I think Alex Garland is just telling it like it is, whether it was intentional or not, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate that it's a reflection of the real world. Also, I think, even if she hadn't been flirting, let's say, because some articles argued, oh, well, she could have, why couldn't she be discussing world issues instead of having to be sexual? But she's in a room, she lives with two assholes, right? So even if she had been talking about world issues, what makes you think they're going to take her seriously? She knows that the only way they're going to take her seriously is through her sexuality. It's sad, but it's true. And she did it, and she succeeded. So long story short, I just think that it really depends on the viewer and how the viewer sees the movie. I think that's an easy way out. I think anyone can say that. But what I really mean is, if you feel bad for Caleb, if you think, oh, poor Caleb, he was just used, Ava's a bitch, then I think you're a misogynistic asshole. But I don't think the movie's misogynistic, and I don't think Alex Garland's misogynistic, and or maybe he could be. I'm not sure. I can't speak for him. But for the movie itself, like I said, I think it's unintentionally feminist because it is a movie about masculinity, but it reflects masculinity realistically and it reflects it negatively. Also, I think it's great that finally a male is being penalized for being sentimental. I mean, whether he's being sentimental or he just has sexual interests, either way, let's just pretend that he actually did fall for her and he actually does have a crush on her. I think it's relieving. I think it's relieving to finally see a male being penalized for being sentimental. I think had it been the other way, had the gender roles been switched, let's say Ava was a male, let's say Caleb was a female, feminists would be angry that, oh, once again, the female is, she gets in trouble for putting her heart on her sleeve. And in this case, it was the other way around. I think that's really interesting to see. So I think it's unfair that, people, now that it's a male his sentiments are getting in the way, feminists are angry about it when finally we're seeing a trait that is typically portrayed in females, portrayed in a male, and it ends up not working out for him. And so, in conclusion, I think Ex Machina could be seen as a feminist movie. It depends on the viewer. I would say it's unintentional, but in the end, I think it doesn't matter whether it was unintentional or intentional. At least it's out there. And thank you. That concludes my podcast on Ex Machina.